Welcome, viewers! I'm your host, Nitro, and this is Nitro Reviews. For a few years now, we've been celebrating Valentine's Day with a certain themed topic, that being Deredere character archetypes. We've already covered topics like yanderes and tsunderes, but today we're covering something a little different. Today, we're covering the archetype that stands above all the rest, Derederes. It's important to note that all Deredere types extend from this specific one. Because of that, it's by far the most popular character type, and it can easily be found in hundreds of shows. This made choosing the subject of today's video very difficult. There's no doubt in my mind that there are far more deserving characters that we could have chosen, but you already know the topic I ended up with, King of the Hill. That's right, this show has a few characters that fit this archetype. In fact, I could have devoted this entire video to the character Lucky, who had went through such an amazing arc since his introduction, but today we're going to be focused on Hank's son, Bobby Hill. And more importantly, a very specific arc of his. I'm not gonna lie. This episode is going to be very hard to sit through, but I believe the topic it covers is important enough both to the character as well as the audience. So, let's get into it. This is King of the Hill. I'm with Cupid. Right off the bat, there's two things that make this review different from my other Valentine's Day videos. One is the fact that the character of today's topic is a boy. Which, okay, male characters were never excluded from the Deredere archetypes. It's just that they aren't really thought of as much as female characters. And second, while other videos I've made covered different types of love and personalities, this is the first time we'll be covering the negative aspects of love. How love can be used to hurt someone, and how one's own affection can end up destroying themselves. Because of this topic, the episode we'll be covering today is regarded as one of the worst ones in the series, which I can kind of see why. While it is an important story to cover, it is not fun at all. It is a very hard to watch episode, and you're gonna see why in a bit. It's also very light on the humor, like to the point that the usual B-plot of the episode actually gets abandoned early on to focus purely on the main story. It steps way outside of the show's comfort zone, which normally could be a good thing, but it feels like the writers were confident enough with the story to press on anyways. The episode begins on Valentine's Day, with all the kids passing around coronations to one another. Bobby, who just recently broke up with his girlfriend, is doing relatively great. He's popular with the girls, is still friends with his ex Connie, and even helps his friend win over a girl he likes. All in all, the start of this episode is very wholesome. Now, I should clarify that I will be streamlining this review a bit, so I'm not going to go super deep into the King of the Hill lore, but I should mention that in earlier episodes, Bobby's friend, Joseph, goes through a very similar situation that Bobby is about to. And how this episode picks up on that helps with getting across its message. But we are getting way ahead of ourselves here. Since Bobby has proven his recent maturity, his parents let him stay home alone while they go out on a date. One problem, they ask their neighbor Bill to check up on him. It's at this point that you can already tell what's about to go terribly wrong. You see, Bill is a very complicated character. He's been through a very depressing, rough spell in his life. Because of this, he can either be seen as a beacon of hope and optimism, or alternatively, as a parasite seeking to latch onto anything that gives him even the slightest bit of attention. One such example of his good nature is when he helps his friend get over a woman he fell in love with.
You're in hell now, Boomhauer. Look at me, Boomhauer. I'm fat. And I'm old. I'm out there digging holes, falling into them, climbing out. Get yourself out of that tunnel and into some strange woman, man!
Yeah. It's a beautiful scene that shows Bill's heart is always in the right place. And this episode is not one of those times. Bill shows up depressed because it's Valentine's Day. Yeah! And he takes advantage of Bobby's breakup in order to get him to join him for dinner. Sounds innocent enough, but unfortunately, Bill sows seeds of doubt that any girl could possibly be interested in Bobby. And this one line sums it up best.
Stop right there. You could drive yourself crazy trying to figure out all the reasons women are laughing at you.
Once dinner is over, Bill spends the rest of the night sinking Bobby deeper and deeper into depression. until both of them are crying on the couch over their exes. Bobby now believes that if he doesn't get his old girlfriend back, he's never going to find happiness again. And this is when the episode becomes very difficult to watch. From here on out, things get very uncomfortable as Bobby desperately latches on to his ex. And just to clarify, I'm not talking about 1 or 2 weird scenes every minute or so. I mean, this is just what the episode is now. As I mentioned, I'm just streamlining the timeline of events for the episode, but just to give you an idea of how heavily the episode leans into this, here's every weird thing Bobby says in just a minute of screen time.
If she would just love me again, I would build her a beautiful cage and never let her out. I'd do anything for you, Connie. Pumpkin, don't use the F word on me. Not me. This is your cuddle monster talking. Connie, don't leave me!
Dude, is this what I do to chicks?
It's easy to understand why people don't really like this episode when it's just this. And I do stand by my belief that this episode is important for Bobby's character. I just think they laid it on a bit too thick here. Also, just in case you think that you know what to expect from the episode, here's the next scene.
Connie, I'm your little candy man. No.
Yeah, this episode just keeps getting weirder and weirder the longer it goes on. Speaking of which, after only a few failed attempts to get his ex back, Bobby gets some more advice from Bill, who says his only real regret was never making that big grand gesture to win his wife back. And yeah, you already know where this is going.
Got 1 hour left, and it's going straight into Connie Super-Deucin' heart.
Oh, gross! You licked it!
Seeing as how Bobby's reputation has now plummeted to new lows, Hank asks his friend Boomhauer to help him with his lady problem. So Boomhauer takes Bobby to the local mall and has him watch as he attempts to pick up chicks. Oh yeah! Boomhauer gets rejected, but to Bobby's surprise, he just moves on to another girl. It takes getting rejected 21 times before Boomhauer finally gets someone's number. This lesson about not fearing rejection actually mirrors what Bill had told Bobby at the start of the episode.
Stop right there. You could drive yourself crazy trying to figure out all the reasons women are laughing at you.
The problem is that instead of not caring about what others think of him, he began to care too much. This destroyed his self-esteem. And now that he believes no other girl could ever truly like him, he started to desperately cling to the only girl who did like him. This is further reflected after Bobby failed at winning his ex over at the party. A perfect example of how one's own loving nature can backfire on them. Boomhauer teaches Bobby that rejection is nothing to be afraid of. You could get turned down by hundreds of women. It's not the end of the world. This is also shown through the character Joseph, who had his own arc like Bobby's. Only now, he did find a girl interested in him. And once Bobby stopped obsessing over what others think of him, so did he. As he meets a girl in the mall who found his antics endearing, and both go off together to have some fun, yeah, it was a fairly nice end to a really weird episode. And that was King of the Hill, I'm with Cupid. An episode with a very important message, but not that fun to watch. The beginning and end of the episode are nice, but that middle is just really rough. I didn't even show you a fraction of what this episode did, so I can't imagine it'd be on anyone's high recommendation lists. Also, keep in mind, most people don't usually like the depressing Bill episodes of the show anyways. But me, personally, I like a lot of them. So if my tolerance for that kind of writing is that high, you can only imagine how much worse this episode would be for those who really can't stand that type of writing. And this episode is kind of a weird anomaly, because I don't think it's necessarily doing anything wrong. It's not bad writing by any means. It's just an uncomfortable subject matter. But the thing is, we have several episodes like this, like Boomhauer falling in love, or Joseph hitting puberty, and those episodes are far more appealing to watch than this one. I think it comes down to 2 things. 1, the other episodes had more story and characters to them. This episode is almost entirely a Bobby and Bill story, and even then, there isn't much story that happens. The majority of the runtime is Bobby saying or doing something weird, with Bill tuning in every now and then. There's no substance other than just watching Bobby be weird up until the end. Also, you might have forgot, but I did mention earlier that this episode cuts its B-plot short, which is why I didn't even bother to mention the story portion. The B-plot focused on Hank and Peggy entering a square dancing contest, which they lose the literal second it starts, and that's it. For the rest of the episode, Hank and Peggy rarely show up. Also, the story summary in this review being so short, especially for a full-length episode, should be an indication that not much actually happens. The other thing that really hurts this episode is the lack of humor. Now, I understand they wanted to portray this topic in a serious light, but all that really left viewers with is weird scenes after weird scenes, no breaks, just a train crash that seemed like it was never going to end. The best way to sum up this episode is a good idea with a very poor execution. This episode definitely didn't show Derederes in the best light, but I think it's interesting to see these character types in a very challenging situation. And in the end, an important lesson was taught. So I think it was well worth it despite the rough edges. And I could definitely recommend checking out this episode, at least once. I definitely don't plan on watching this episode again anytime soon. So, I think that's it for me. Thank you guys for tuning in to this broadcast of Nitro Reviews. Feel free to leave a like, and if you're interested in future episodes, then be sure to subscribe, as that helps support the channel and what we do here. Thank you all for watching, and we hope to see you again in the next review.